Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Vic Calfis. I'm really excited to talk to you today about Christian flourishing. But really, what I'll be doing will be to give a bit of a recap on Christian flourishing, what it is, start from a historical perspective, and at the same time look at flourishing in contemporary terms and some of the work that's been done in this space. And also, I would also consider how flourishing can be conceptualized from a biblical lens or a Christian perspective, and end with how we can actually measure this today. Now, our first stop it's with ancient Greece, where the great philosopher Aristotle kind of laid the foundation of the concept that we kind of know as human flourishing. In his ethics, he kind of introduced us to eudaimonia, which is really a term that transcends the simplicity of happiness and something encompasses a state of well-being that is achieved through living a virtuous life and realizing one's potential. Now, Aristotle encouraged us to kind of see beyond the fleeting pleasures, fostering a sense or a radical community where individual good kind of resonates with the welfare of others. Now, as we move into the Middle Ages, we kind of see Thomas Aquinas, who was one of the early church, who was one of the prominent scholars within the church at that time, who kind of interpreted human flourishing through a theological lens. And according to him, in his seminal work, the Summa Theologica, he introduces us to what he called the beatitudo, or rather what you would call blessedness, which according to him was a state of ultimate human flourishing that kind of intertwined with one's relationship with God and the pursuit of virtue. Now, Thomas Aquinas, or Saint Aquinas, kind of envisioned a harmonious blend of spiritual, moral, and even intellectual dimensions, which according to him, it's guided by reason and virtues that kind of steers us towards a divine vision of God. Now, as we even look at this topic, I think it's also important that we fast forward to the period or the era of enlightenment, which was really a time that illuminated human intellect. And at this time, we meet someone, one of the scholars or philosophers at the time, Immanuel Kant. Now, Kant sort of brought a shift in the discourse, and he kind of highlighted the significance of rationality and moral law in achieving true human flourishing. In fact, he presented sort of a contrast view to Aristotle and Aquinas, and focusing solely on the moral duty rather than the outcome of that such a duty. Now, Immanuel Kant sort of introduced us to the categorical imperative, which really urges individuals to do what is right because it is right. And by doing that, we kind of carve a path to self-containment and inner peace, which are, of course, quintessential components of human flourishing. Now, as we move to contemporary times, or rather contemporary perspectives on human flourishing, I think the narrative of human flourishing in this era, in our current contemporary era, kind of unfolds with richer context, especially woven with diverse threads from psychology and even beyond. And you find that in around the 20th century, we witnessed the birth of humanistic psychology, a movement that really shifted the focus towards the realization of human potential and intrinsic growth capacities. Now, growth capabilities. Now, thinkers like Abraham Maslow and even Carl Rogers were really at the forefront of this particular school of thought, or the humanistic movement, psychology movement, and they were emphasizing self-actualization and even personal growth. For example, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs presents sort of a roadmap to achieving human flourishing that kind of guides us on from not just fulfilling basic needs, but also how to strive for higher domains such as love, esteem, and even self-actualization. Now, Carl Rogers, on the other hand, brought to light the innate human tendency towards growth and self-actualization as well. And for him, he was emphasizing on the need to foster um, empathy, authenticity, and positive regard, or rather create environments that can foster this sort of unconditional positive regard. Now, as we continue to look at psychology in itself, we find the field of transpersonal psychology, which kind of brought forth the spiritual facets of human flourishing. Now, Charles Pratt kind of introduced the concept of conscious trance. And essentially, in his work, he illustrates the conditioned state of human existence. In fact, he urged people to he urged individuals to awaken to the higher state of consciousness that kind of transcends the societal norms in order to realize the interconnectedness of all beings and, of course, the spiritual dimensions of our existence. Now, movies such as The Matrix also really took some ideas from this philosophy of conceptualization. Now, we also look at the work of Ken Wilber, who was a visionary who presented a multidimensional view of human flourishing that kind of he encapsulates this in his great nest of being model. And according to him, his framework, I think, is somewhat evolutionary in the sense that he takes this view of consciousness and intertwines human potential, spiritual awareness, and even societal growth, and therefore encouraging us to kind of explore and integrate these different stages of consciousness in order to experience human flourishing. Even as we venture into the 21st century, we find that the narrative also take something multifaceted, multidimensional tone, especially with the rise of positive psychology, which was spearheaded by Martin Seligman, which sort of shifted towards the positive aspects of human life. For example, Seligman's Palmer model sort of outlines a holistic approach to human well-being, and therefore incorporating elements like positive emotion, engagement, relationship, meaning, and achievement. These were the five keywords that formed his Palmer model. And according to him, we need positive emotion, we need engagement, we need a relationship, we need to forge meanings and also achievement in order to really to flourish, rather. But I think in recent years, the concept of human flourishing have even further evolved, crossing sort of disciplinary boundaries and even influencing the various fields, different fields such as medicine, healthcare, public health, bioethics, of course, still psychology, even humanities as well, and especially in the field of epidemiology with the work of colleagues at the Human Flourishing program. Now, we could also mark some noteworthy contributions in our current time. People like Corey Keyes, who have brought fresh perspective to the discussion on human flourishing, focusing on mental and social well-being. But also, I think as we look at these particular developments in our time, we also find rich insights and discoveries in people trying to make sense of what human flourishing might look like from a cross-cultural lens. And so the narrative of human flourishing is really far from over, and we find new perspective evolving every day. But I want to talk about the work of Tyler Vandervelde at the Human Flourishing program at Harvard University, and how he looks at the domains of human flourishing by considering the different multifaceted aspects of human flourishing and studies that's been done from the time of Aristotle to the present time. And so he explores the different areas of life where we can experience growth and happiness. Now, this concept of human flourishing, he talked about it in a way that allows us really to imagine life as a garden. So imagine life as a garden. Every aspect of your life is different. It's a different kind of flower. And so when we understand what these flowers are, it's a way of looking at human flourishing from different multifaceted framework. For example, you have happiness and life satisfaction. You have meaning and purpose. You have mental and physical health. You have character and virtue. You have close social relationships. and financial and material stability. And according to Vanderbilt, these are ways of looking at human flourish, or these are the different flowers that make up a flower, if that makes sense. And in other words, if we're going to look at human flourish, we must take a multi-dimensional approach. But also, he talks about these different domains of human flourishing at once as one that actually emanates, or rather arise from within particular pathways. And he describes this as the pathways of flourishing that can lead us to a happy and flourishing life. And of course, there are multiple ways of looking at this, but he identified four. One was work. The second is education. The third pathway, it's religious communities and also family. Now, and it makes sense to think about how these four pathways often are pathways to which people experience human flourishing. But I think this multidimensional approach to human flourishing is very important. And as we can see, human flourishing is like growing a beautiful garden. It's about nurturing every aspect of our lives, from our health and our relationships to our work and even our passion and the way we make meaning in the process. And so we'll get to the second part of this work, especially as I ask what really is human flourishing and take the different approach to looking at it. But also the other way of looking at human flourishing is also to consider the theological view of human flourishing. Now, especially when we look at human flourishing from a theological perspective, particularly focusing on the Christian tradition. Now, we could see this through the Bible as well. First starting with creation, which was the original intent of flourishing. You find that the concept of imago Dei and its implication for human value and potential kind of really goes back to this idea of creation and the responsibility that we all have to all of God's creation. And of course, we find that the Bible begins with a vivid portrayal of God's intention for humans to flourish. This intention is really rooted deeply in the creation narrative in the book of Genesis. And here we find the term imago Dei being introduced, which kind of signifies humans' unique capacity for relationship, for morality, for creativity, and even stewardship. And I think this kind of lays the foundation for human flourishing. And so as we talk about flourishing in the story of the Bible, it really starts with the story of creation, But also, I think as we move forward from that, we see the fall and redemption, which is really the challenge to the flourishing that was originally intended by God. Now, I think the narrative in the creation story takes a turn with the event of the fall. Now, I think the fall is really a moment that significantly challenges the initial blueprint for human flourishing. Now, this event, marked by disobedience, as we know, introduced sin into the world and thereby altering the harmony that we had with God, and even the earth itself. And so, but despite this, the Bible kind of unfolds a promising redemptive arc through the life and death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, which really offers us as Christians hope and paving the way for the restoration of the right relationship and renewed flourishing. But also we see in the story of the Bible with Jesus, which has practical implication with what flourishing is for Christians. Now, central to the Christian understanding of flourishing is Jesus' life and teaching, which of course serve as a beacon of what it means to thrive in alignment with God's intent. Now, we see Jesus bring forth an alternative version of flourishing that is rooted in the kingdom of God, emphasized on love, forgiveness, justice, and peace. And through even his Sermon on the Mount, Jesus outlines the blueprint for flourishing life, focusing on embodying virtues and even fostering right relationship with God and others. And this really offers really a robust and hopeful perspective on human flourishing. But also we see that in the church as well, especially when we look at the church and human flourishing. And essentially when we think about that, I think the Bible highlights the vital role the early Christian church played in fostering human flourishing. Now, this particular community, as we say, the book of Acts kind of embodies a balanced approach to flourishing that really emphasize things like spiritual growth and material well-being. Now, even in the midst of conflict and challenges, the early church showed resilience. They showed a commitment to unity, a mutual care, which I think it presents a holistic and compelling model for fostering human flourishing in modern society. And of course, we also see the future of flourishing with an eschatological promise in the Bible, especially as we see that the biblical narrative really culminates with a profound depiction of restored and enhanced flourishing. We see that in the book of Revelation. Now, this eschatological promise presents an ultimate picture of human and cosmic flourishing, which really symbolizes a deep-seated hope that permeates Christian theology and experience. Now, it also portrays a future where all of God's creation flourishes in harmony with God's intent, and therefore offers us a source of motivation and guiding our Christian living in the present, and as we foster hopeful anticipation of complete flourishing in God's kingdom. Now, you find theologically throughout the Bible, as we look at the story of the Bible, it is the story of flourishing. Now, I want to ask, how can we conceptualize and measure flourishing as social scientists, as philosophers, as theologians? How can we do that as practitioners in the church as well? How can we do that so we can embody that and in our practice? I think in our journey to understand human flourishing from a Christian perspective, we should begin with a profound concept, with the concept for abundant life. Now, this particular phrase, of course, springing directly from Christ himself in the Bible, it paints a vivid picture of a thriving and prosperous living through a deep connection or communion with God and others. Now, as we find, I think that this particular phrase, the abundant life, as we see in the book of Genesis, we find that humans were created in God's image, destined to nurture and cultivate the earth, sharing in its abundance. And I think that this emphasis on abundant life by Jesus is a return to that same promise at creation, so that we can really embody the image of God. It is the original blueprint. However, when we faced a significant disruption with the advent of sin, commonly referred to in Christian theology as the fall, we'll find this harmonious relationship between God and man broken due to sin. But the story doesn't really end there. We find that the Bible really points towards a beacon of hope, a promise of restoration through Jesus Christ. And no wonder he talks about abundant life, a life of restoration, a life that goes to kind of, change whatever that's been done in the fall. Now, I think as we venture back in time to really historical context of Jesus' ministry, we could even find a society that is marred by scarcity and oppression. Now, it was during this period of significant deficiency that Jesus introduced a revolutionary promise of an abundant life. He was offering a refreshing and transformative vision of well-being that really transcended the physical and material domains. Now, Jesus promised a life of abundance amidst a society grappling with various hardship. It's essential really to recognize that Jesus was promising a transformation of life in its entirety. Abundant life is a concept that goes beyond material prosperity to really encompass both the spiritual, relational, and even the moral dimensions of the flourishing life. And so I think we need to identify the necessity as we look at this for a cohesive paradigm that really encapsulates the whole essence of Christian flourishing. And I think that this is grounded in the concept of abundant life. Now, as we look at Jesus' teaching on abundant life, or rather, the phrase abundant life, it could tell us so many things. It could mean many things. Of course, we see Jesus breaking societal norms and prejudice in his conversation with the Samaritan woman, offering her the living water, a representation of the abundant life he brought. Now, in another instance, we see Jesus who kind of embodies mercy and compassion, preventing the stoning of a woman caught in adultery, inviting her to a new life of righteousness. Now, the principle of justice is also profoundly depicted in the parable of the workers in the vineyard, demonstrating God's generous and equal treatment. And you could see, well, the parable of the Good Samaritan even stands as a vivid representation of neighborly love, an aspect of an abundant life. And so even in our modern context, the gospel of abundance is also vividly embodied by the likes of people like Corrie ten Boom, Mother Teresa, or even Martin Luther King, all of who, despite facing trials and adversity, they showed a life of richness, a life of abundance that's characterized by spiritual resilience and radical love. And so I think when defining, it's important that we look at abundant life as a way of conceptualizing Christian flourishing, because we arrive at the heart of the Christian narrative when we talk about the gospel of abundance. Now, this gospel of abundance transcends time. It offers a promise of fullness and richness of life in Christ. And I think that it's important when looking at what abundant life of human flourishing might mean for Christians that we start from this very concept. Why is Christian flourishing important? Why should we care about this? Now, I think it's at its core, Christian flourishing really represents a holistic approach to well-being. This approach to well-being is really grounded deeply in the teachings and the love of God. And in a world often caught up with materialistic pursuits, it serves as a refreshing perspective that challenges the individualistic and consumerist tendencies in modern society. Now, Christian flourishing invites Christian communities to become bastions of love and joy and peace and unity, fostering a deep and meaningful relationship, and not just that, even serving as a beacon of hope in the world as we embody truly what Christ wants us to be, the salt and light of the world. And thank you for joining me as we had this conversation around Christian flourishing. I hope you don't stop there. I look forward to your questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email at vcounted@regent.edu. It's been wonderful talking to you. And don't forget to check out our Abundant Life Flourishing program at Regent University. And I hope that you have a great time and see you next time. Bye.